Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I am delighted to welcome a very senior leader from the world of human resources and human behavior from Birmingham, UK, Michelle Mills Porter. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
Thank you. Michelle is the founder of the People Reader Limited. She's a human behavior expert specializing in motivation and collaboration, and she's the national president of the Professional Speaking Association of UK and Ireland. So, Michelle, my first question to you, what was the inspiration to start your journey with human behavior?
Well, I think I'd always had an interest in human behaviour, right from being a young child, trying to understand how to fit in, being moved around in schools and trying to understand what helped us to build rapport with other people. But I was actually a CEO, a very successful marketing company that I'd started from scratch, and I thought that I was rocking it. And this is like 2003. We were doing brilliantly, winning every single award you could imagine. I went on a few holidays to celebrate, and it was actually being caught smack bang in the middle of the Boxing Day tsunami. That's what changed me. That's what lit the light. And I saw straight through to the core of humanity in the face of adversity. And that shook me to my core. I realized that we are magnificent. And I realized there's this beautiful benevolence and compassion underneath all the layers. And that's what changed my mind and changed the trajectory of my life. I thought I have to uncover this and show people how magnificent they are.
Wow. So, you partly answered my next question, which was on adversity, but can you give me a little more details about how the tsunami impacted your own understanding of people and what made you change yourself?
Yes, I don't think that I changed as a person. I think that it highlighted some core things that were really important to me that I'd lost sight of. So I think that adversity has got this ability to recalibrate our core driving forces and awaken us to what's important in our life. And there's nothing that will do that like sitting in a garden thinking about your loved ones at home to be able to recalibrate and remind you what's important in life. For me, what changed was the fact that we had this small culture, and we were in one person's garden. Jimmy Lau was a village elder in Hikkaduwa, and he opened up his garden to a host of us who were, without homes, without shelter, and he opened his garden to us. And that community in a week was just beautiful. The way that we communicated, it was incredible that even though we all spoke different languages, we didn't have any problem communicating.
Right.
And the way that we collaborated, there was this flattening of hierarchy. All of a sudden, it didn't matter what your title was, didn't matter what you did, didn't matter how big your car was. All of a sudden, there was a flattening of hierarchy, and the things that were important were latent skills, things that we might not have valued in the Western world, being able to dress a wound, being able to light a fire, being able to plumbing was when you've got more than 100 people in one garden and no flushing toilet. Plumbing is all of a sudden extremely important. Okay. So there was this acceptance of the skills that people brought, and that bred this collaboration, which was just phenomenal.
How amazing. How amazing. So let's now talk about, motivation and collaboration. What, in your view, are some of the core drivers of human motivation in teams?
Human motivation in teams, I think there's a big difference actually in terms of your motivation at work and your motivation as an individual. So I work I've created a motivational tool that actually uncovers what subconscious core driving forces you truly have. And there's only 6 to choose from, and we decide which out of those 6 are the most important to you and which are the least important important to you, and that helps us to understand ourselves and each other. But in a work environment, we're talking about something different, and we usually are talking about the organization or the leaders want people to buy in to their core mission and values. So sometimes we get the words mixed up and we say values when actually we mean mission and vision. So I think the most important thing for leaders is to understand what motivates people individually
Mhm.
and work out how that fits in with the vision and the mission of the organization and not try and force it.
Mhm.
So I think a mistake that leaders make sometimes is by saying, if you don't share our values, you can't join our organization. That is not inclusive. People have different values for different
Correct.
reasons. And as leaders, we need to accept that they have different drivers, different motivations,
Mhm.
and create space for those to be realized.
Great response. And therefore, a follow-up question for you, Michelle. How can leaders identify what truly motivates their people?
You can only do it by getting down and talking to them.
Mm.
Now, whether you do that through an analysis like I've created or whether you do it through conversation, it doesn't matter. But
Mm.
you cannot do it without truly understanding those people. And I think leadership has, we need to be empathetic leaders. We need to be servant leaders in order for us to be able to evolve. And the more we get down and talk to people and understand what they want, the more we can create an environment in which they flourish. And I may have been ahead of my time, but way back when I was a CEO, and I'm talking 2002,
Right.
2003, even then, I was one of the youngest companies in the country to gain investors in people because
Mm.
I understood the importance of the of serving the people that work with me
Mm.
and not the other way around.
Well said. My next question, Michelle, is how do motivation and collaboration intersect in the workplace?
I think collaboration is it's all about giving each other space
Mm.
and respecting each other. You can't collaborate effectively without doing that.
Yeah.
So that kind of pulling down of the hierarchy is the very first step. It's understanding that everyone has got something of equal value to bring to the party.
Mm.
Now, in terms of our motivation, our personal motivation comes from our very formative years. So
Mm.
it's to do with our upbringing, our culture, our religion, if we had one, what our caregivers taught us, our experiences. And therefore, we have a different perspective of the world to somebody that has a different upbringing, religion, experiences,
Right.
background, caregivers. So, those perspectives, we need to give room for
Mm.
every perspective to be valued. That
Mm.
is the very basis of allowing collaboration to happen. If we
Mm.
do that, collaboration is not hard. It's not like pushing water uphill. Collaboration is really easy when we all are accepting of each other. We
Mm.
only need one thing, in my
Mm.
opinion,
Yeah.
and that is either a shared goal or a shared enemy. And sometimes
Mm.
they can be the same thing.
Well said. And what role does self-awareness play in driving motivation?
Oh, it's absolutely intrinsic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's fundamental. If you don't have self-awareness
Mhm.
and you don't understand what it is that motivates you,
Mhm.
then and the consequences can be dire. And I'll give you an example. When I came back from the tsunami, I'd reawakened my own motivations, what was
Mhm.
important to me, and that was all about helping other people and you know being benevolent and those kind of things. And in my work environment, that wasn't what I was doing.
Mhm.
But I had 14 staff and I couldn't just close the business. I had a responsibility to them. So I had to continue doing what I was doing as CEO. Now, what that did when I wasn't fulfilling my own core driving forces
Mhm.
is it really started to break me down. So it started with illness and then it started with depression, and it started a whole ball rolling of
Hmm.
collapse, and it ended in what I call a complete medical breakdown. Now,
Wow.
some people nowadays will call that massive burnout, but I call it a medical breakdown. I
Hmm.
literally was flat on my back, and it was only when I gave space to what truly motivates me and started filling those buckets that I was
Hmm.
able to climb out of that.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing this. Michelle, my next question is what common leadership mistakes inhibit team performance?
Um, I think the common leadership mistakes are, I think I've already alluded to it. Thinking that your organization has a has values when actually you have a mission and a vision rather than values. You might want people to share your values, but you can't force those values upon your
Right.
people. You have to give space for their own values to be
Hmm.
realized, and
Hmm.
then find the alignment. How does that fit in with, with what you want the
Right.
organization to look like? So
Right.
I think that that's the key thing.
Hmm.
But also the fact that people at the top sometimes don't realize that the message and the passion that they have for
Hmm.
the organization doesn't get filtered through right down to the bottom level. And
Hmm.
that's one of the issues that I see. Quite often, I'm brought into organizations to
Hmm.
try and bring teams back together. And the common theme is the fact that the people at the bottom, is so to speak,
Right.
didn't get the message from the top. It's not
Hmm.
translating through. So it's
Hmm.
not transparent all the way. And the leaders at the top are thinking, well, hey, we're brilliant, we're going this way. And people aren't following them because they're not bought in, because they don't understand. They don't
Hmm.
understand the vision, the mission, the role well enough to be
Hmm.
able to support.
Yeah. Thank you. You were telling me a few minutes back about the methodologies and tools you have developed. And therefore, my question is, how do your tools or methodologies reveal hidden potential in individuals?
Oh, that's exactly what they do.
Hmm.
Exactly what they do. So, the behavior profile that I've
Hmm.
written shows prominent qualities. There are 12 prominent qualities, and
Hmm.
we show which people have prominent qualities and which, and it's very balanced. So, the reason that I've done it in the way that I've done it is because I have a very big fairness bone.
Hmm. Hmm.
Fairness and equilibrium is massively important to me for
Hmm.
obvious reasons when you look at my history.
Hmm.
So for me, I don't want anyone to feel that they can't shine. So
Hmm.
for every single prominent quality I have highlighted, there is an opposite. So you can't be good at everything.
Hmm.
You are either very self-motivated
Hmm.
or you are very patient. You
Hmm.
can't be both.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we allow every single person to
Hmm.
shine and to see perhaps what they're not very good at. What
Yeah.
that does is it helps them to lean into others that are good at that. So actually together they
Hmm.
can create a much better team.
Correct.
That's just one of the tools. Every single one of my tools is designed to make sure that everyone can be empowered and
Hmm.
understand what they bring to the party.
Very interesting. Let's now talk about embracing neurodivergent workforces, which is another area of your expertise. And my first question is, what are the hidden superpowers of neurodivergent individuals at work?
Okay, I'm going to clarify something if I
Mhm.
can. I talk from my lived experience,
Sure.
and I run a couple of neurodivergent groups, and
Mm.
that helps me to understand an awful
Yeah.
lot. And one of the superpowers I have, being ADHD, is the ability to hyper focus. So I
Mm.
can learn things very quickly because I don't go to bed. I'm just learning, and
Mm.
I hyper focus, and I don't do anything. I don't eat, I don't sleep, I
Yeah.
don't drink, until I've got to the bottom of it. And that is
Mm.
one of the potential prominent qualities
Yeah.
of people with ADHD.
Mm.
But I am not an expert in
Sure.
neurodivergence. So I do have experts in my groups, but I'm an observer and I'm learning all the way. I think some of the things that there are umbrellas, and we tend to think that people that are on the autistic spectrum um, are not very aware of other people's feelings. That is absolutely not true. We sometimes think that people with ADHD are constantly interrupting other people because they don't have any filter. That is untrue. So actually, I've created this whole graph, which is what the analysis was based on, and
Right.
it identifies all of the potential prominent qualities for each of those neurodivergent conditions. And it's astonishing when you suddenly realize that the massive creative problem solvers, are probably neurodivergent. And the ones that are the most creative, probably neurodivergent. It's that polarness, that actually makes neurodivergence something to aspire to rather than to run away from.
Great response. And a follow-up question for you, Michelle, is why is embracing the neurodivergence essential for high performance?
Um, I'd like to ask, why is it not?
Hmm.
I think there are some real problems, and it starts with the title neurodivergent.
Mm,
If you look at the complexities of humans and human behavior,
mm,
you might listen to the experts and think that 25% of our society is neurodivergent.
mm,
I beg to differ.
mhm.
Having done thousands and thousands of analyses on people and spotting the patterns which led me to think maybe I ought to get diagnosed, is the fact that I believe that more than half of society are neurodivergent. So
Mm,
therefore, the very title neurodivergent is wrong.
mm.
It's not divergent at all.
Yeah.
It is just different. If you look back in history, some of the people that have changed society for the
Mm,
betterment of humanity,
mm,
it is very difficult to look at them and their profile
mm.
and not see
Yeah.
neurodivergence.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that make changes, the
Mm,
ones that have the courage to say, why are we doing like this? Why don't we do it like that
mm.
instead? Most of them seem to be neurodivergent. So why
Right.
would we not celebrate that? Why do we want normal? Why do we want grey? I
Mm.
don't understand why we
Yeah.
would.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. And how can leaders or organizations start to create a neuro-inclusive culture?
The very first step has to be to make it a warm environment for people to
Mm,
walk into.
mm,
The fear, I was speaking on a bank holiday. I was speaking in a public school yesterday, and it's very plain to see
mm,
that these young adults that came from a largely privileged background
mm,
were very unsure about being open in terms of whether they were neurodivergent or not. And that
mm.
was a big trigger for me. We
Right.
need people to embrace neurodiversity and say,
Mm.
yes, I am different,
Yeah.
and be able to walk into an organization and say, hi, I'm neurodivergent and I have
Mm.
talents that
Yeah.
you can use. Now, as long as people are afraid of doing that, as long as
Mm.
people are scared of telling their employers that they are neurodivergent,
Mm.
then we are not going to be able to get the best out of them. So it
Right.
starts with a very open, come on in, the water's fine. If you're
Mm.
neurodivergent, let us know because we've got some special, some special areas that you might find brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, yes, those people are going to also need support. And I'll give you an example. I am a creative genius in certain fields. Okay,
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
going to own it.
Yeah.
I had my first poem published when I was 11 years old, and I know that I am really creative and I can do things that other people just don't seem to have the capacity to do.
Mm.
But I need someone to check all of my typos, my letters, my marketing, everything, because my spelling is appalling and my
Mm.
maths, let's not even go there. So I know what I'm good at and
Mm.
what I'm not good at. And if
Mm.
people aren't willing to step in and help with that stuff I need support at, I can't shine, and vice versa.
Mm. Amazing. Time for two more questions for you. One more question on neurodivergent work. So my question is, what's your vision for the future of neurodivergent representation in leadership?
I love that question. My vision is that we no longer call it neurodivergence, that we
Absolutely.
understand the spectrum of
Mm.
humanity, that we understand that we are incredibly complicated, emotional, and vibrant beings, every one of us, and that there is no normal, there is no good opposed to bad. There are differences. And in order to be able to allow people to lean into what they're good at and let go of the stuff that they're not good at, that would be ideal. And if I look back to, let's imagine a normal sales team 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I can remember sales leaders saying, well, this person's a brilliant salesperson, but their paperwork is shocking. So therefore we can't promote them. My head just goes, poof. That person is a brilliant salesperson. So allow them to go and sell and communicate with people, get someone else to do their paperwork for them. And all of a sudden you've fulfilled two people's, ideals rather than trying to flatten one person. And I would love to see that being realized in the future.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it will one day. And my last question for you, Michelle, we've spoken about human behavior, we've spoken about neurodiversity, but you've got another hat that you wear, which is the president of the Professional Speaking Association. How has your role as the PSA president influenced your mission, both for the work that you're doing in human behavior as well as for neurodivergent human beings?
Well, I am a little bit maverick, as you probably might have guessed. So I'm going to turn that on its head and say that it hasn't influenced my mission at all. In fact, my mission has influenced my position as PSA National President. And the reason is I'm very proud, by the way, to say that we are part of the Global Speaking Federation, and that there are professional speaking associations all over the world, and the collaboration with those PSAs in different countries is very, very special to me. But actually, what I find really the synchronicity is too much to bear. 20 years after these lessons were bestowed upon me in the middle of the Boxing Day tsunami, I suddenly find myself stepping up as national president of the PSA at a time when we are going through our own adversity, the biggest adversity we've been through in 25 years, and those lessons are direly needed. And so actually what I bring to my position as national president of the PSA are all of those lessons about collaboration, motivation, teamwork, and it's really helping us to put our association tighter back together and be more successful.
Well said. And on that note, Michelle, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been. I mean, I think I learned several new things from you about human behavior, about motivation and collaboration. I also learned many new things about neurodivergent behavior and neurodivergent human beings. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.